I'll give you this Lamborghini if you make it run. Billionaire humiliates a black dude, caught knowing things will take a shocking turn. But let me quickly tell you what led to this big challenge. The trunk was shaking. Eli could hear it from 10 feet away, metal banging against metal, like something trapped inside was trying to break free. His hands were bleeding. The rain poured down so hard he could barely see, but he didn't care anymore. This car, this silver Lamborghini, sitting in the mud with its hood wide open, had destroyed his entire life. 3 months ago, billionaire Victor Hallen accused him of stealing parts from this exact car. Eli lost his shop, lost his reputation, lost everything, and now he'd broken into Victor's private garage to steal it back. But the car wouldn't start. That's when he heard the noise. Thud, coming from the trunk. Eli's heart slammed against his chest. His breath caught in his throat. What the hell? He walked closer. The rain soaked through his hoodie. His boots splashed in the mud. The sound got louder. Then a voice. Weak. Desperate. Help, please. Italy grozze. That wasn't a car part. That wasn't an engine. That was a person. He grabbed a trunk latch and yanked it open. And what he saw inside made his blood turn to ice. A girl, maybe 16, tied up with duct tape. Her wrists were raw and bleeding. Her eyes were wide with terror. She looked up at him and whispered, "He's coming back. You have to go." Before Eli could even process what was happening, headlights cut through the trees. A black SUV rolled toward the garage. Victor was home. Eli's mind screamed at him to run, but he couldn't leave her there. He ripped the tape off her wrists and pulled her out of the trunk. She stumbled forward, gasping for air. "Who are you?" "Eli Vispirit." "Lena," she said, trembling. "I'm his niece." Eli's stomach dropped. "Why would he?" "Because I tried to stop him," she cut him off. "And now he's going to do the same thing to you." The SUV door slammed shut. Victor stepped out, calm, clean, wearing a suit like he'd just come from a business meeting. He walked straight toward them. Eli grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her behind a workbench. They crouched low, hidden in the shadows. Victor stopped in front of a Lamborghini. He ran his fingers along the hood like he was petting a dog. Then he smiled. "Time to see who dares touch my treasure." He opened the driver's door and pressed a button on the dashboard. A low hum filled the air. Something deeper. Something wrong. Lena leaned close to Eli and whispered, "That car isn't a car. Ili puronet." "What do you mean?" She pointed to a blinking red light under the steering wheel. "He calls it Project Lazarus. It doesn't run on gas. It runs on people." The hum grew louder. The air felt electric. And then, on the car's digital screen, a face appeared. Eli's heart stopped. It was his brother, Noah, the brother who went missing 3 months ago. The brother everyone said ran away. He was staring back from the dashboard, trapped, his eyes empty, and he whispered, "Eli, help me get out." If you think you know what's happening right now, you don't. Subscribe before the next twist changes everything. Seriously. Eli couldn't breathe. His brother's face stared back at him from that glowing screen, eyes hollow like someone drowning behind glass. Noah had been missing for 3 months, and everyone told Eli to move on, that he probably left town for good. But here he was, trapped inside a dashboard like some kind of digital ghost, his lips moving, but the words coming out broken and distorted. Noah's voice crackled through the speakers, barely audible over the electric hum that filled the garage. "Eli, is that really you? I can't feel my body anymore. I don't know how long I've been in here. He promised me something better, something perfect, but this isn't life. This is hell." Every word sent chills down Eli's spine because it sounded like Noah, but also like something pretending to be him, like a recording that had been played too many times. Victor stood perfectly still in front of the car, his hand resting on the hood, like he owned every molecule of air in that garage. He tilted his head slightly, that same cruel smile spreading across his face. The one Eli remembered from when he was just a kid working on engines behind his father's shop. "Your brother volunteered for greatness, Eli. He wanted to be more than just another mechanic dying in poverty. He wanted immortality, and I gave it to him. Now he lives forever inside my masterpiece." Lena grabbed Eli's arm so hard her nails dug into his skin, her whole body shaking like she'd seen this nightmare before. We have to leave right now, Eli. Once that machine locks onto you, once it reads your brain patterns, you'll end up just like Noah. Victor doesn't collect cars. He collects consciousness. Every person who ever tried to fix this Lamborghini ended up trapped inside it, fueling the system that keeps him alive and young. Eli's mind was racing, trying to piece together what sounded like complete insanity, but somehow made perfect sense when he looked at Noah's terrified face on that screen. Victor hadn't aged a single day since Eli first met him 20 years ago. The same smooth skin, the same sharp eyes, the same calm voice that made promises sound like threats. How many bodies had he stolen? How many minds had he imprisoned inside this machine? Victor took a step closer to the workbench where they were hiding, his shoes clicking against the concrete floor like a countdown timer. I know you're still here, Eli. I can hear your heartbeat from across the room. You came here for revenge, didn't you? You wanted to steal my car, prove everyone wrong, get your reputation back. But what if I told you I could give you something better than revenge? What if I gave you the Lamborghini, free and clear, if you could just get to run? The same offer, the same trap, the same words that had lured Noah into this nightmare. Eli stood up slowly, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. Lena tried to pull him back down, whispering desperately for him to stop, but he couldn't hide anymore. Not when his brother was screaming for help from inside a machine. He stepped out from behind the workbench and faced Victor directly, rain still dripping from his hair, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his throat. If I get it to run, you let them both go. Noah and Lena. Deal. Victor's smile widened. Deal. Would you have taken that deal? Comment below what you do, because what happens next will make you question everything. Victor walked slowly toward the Lamborghini, his fingers trailing along the sleek silver body like he was touching something sacred, something that held more power than any weapon or fortune ever could. He pulled out a small key fob from his jacket pocket and pressed a button that made the car's lights flicker to life, casting eerie shadows across the garage walls. The engine didn't roar like normal cars did. Instead, it hummed with that same unnatural frequency, like electricity coursing through veins instead of pistons firing in chambers. If you're enjoying this video, then this is a sign for you to like the video and subscribe. This means a lot to us, seriously. Eli approached the driver's side door, every instinct in his body screaming at him to run, to grab Lena and disappear into the night before this nightmare swallowed him whole. But Noah's face was still on that screen, his eyes pleading silently for rescue, for freedom from whatever digital prison Victor had engineered. Eli had already lost his shop, his reputation, and 3 months believing his brother abandoned him. He wasn't about to lose Noah again, not when he was this close to understanding the truth behind everything that destroyed his life. Lena stumbled forward, her voice breaking as she shouted across the garage at Victor with tears streaming down her face. You told me my parents died in an accident, but they didn't, did they? They figured out what you were doing with Project Lazarus, and you trapped them inside this machine, just like Noah. How many people are in there, Uncle Victor? How many minds are screaming inside that car while you walk around pretending to be human? Victor's expression didn't change. That cold smile frozen on his face like a mask that never slipped no matter what horrors he committed. Your parents understood the price of evolution, Lena. Humanity's greatest weakness is death, and I solved it. Every consciousness I preserved inside this vehicle has contributed to something greater than their small, meaningless lives ever could have achieved. They're not trapped. They're transcendent. They're eternal. His words dripped with conviction, like he genuinely believed he was some kind of savior instead of a monster. Eli opened the driver's side door, and the interior lights revealed a dashboard that looked nothing like any car he'd ever worked on before. Instead of normal gauges and controls, there were screens displaying brain wave patterns, neural maps, and streams of data that scrolled too fast to read. The steering wheel had sensors embedded in the leather, waiting to read his palm prints, his pulse, his electrical signals. The seat adjusted automatically when he sat down, conforming to his body like it was learning his shape and measuring his worth. The moment his hands touched that steering wheel, Pain shot through his arms like lightning bolts, traveling from his fingers straight into his skull. Images flooded his mind that weren't his own memories. Victor as a young man in the 70s, desperate and dying from disease, making a deal with engineers who promised digital immortality. Decades of jumping from body to body, using the Lamborghini as a vessel to transfer his consciousness whenever his current host started aging. Noah volunteering because Victor promised him wealth and power, not realizing the cost until it was too late. Noah's voice exploded through the speakers, louder now, more desperate than before, fighting against whatever code kept him imprisoned. Eli, don't turn the key. The car doesn't need gas to run. It needs a human nervous system to hijack. Once you start the engine, it'll copy your entire brain, and Victor will use it to upload himself into your body. You'll be stuck in here with me, forever while he walks around wearing your face. Victor stepped closer to the car, his hand reaching for the door handle. Turn the key, Eli. He's 1 second away from losing everything. Subscribe now, because what Eli does next will shock you. Eli's hand hovered over the ignition, trembling so badly he could barely keep his fingers steady. And for the first time in his life, he understood what real fear felt like. Not the fear of losing money or reputation, but the fear of losing yourself, of becoming nothing more than code trapped inside a machine while someone else walked around in your skin. The dashboard screens flickered faster now, displaying his own face next to Victor's, the two images slowly merging pixel by pixel like the car was already deciding who would survive this nightmare. Lena ran toward the car, screaming at the top of her lungs for Eli to stop, to get out before it was too late, but Victor grabbed her by the arm and yanked her backward with surprising strength for someone who looked so calm and composed. She hit the concrete floor hard, gasping for air, and Victor pressed a shoe against her back to keep her down like she was nothing more than an insect he could crush whenever he felt like it. His voice stayed perfectly level, no anger or emotion coloring his words, just cold, calculated certainty that everything would go exactly as he planned. Your brother made his choice, Eli, and now you'll make yours. You can turn that key and save Lena's life, give her a chance to walk out of here and forget this ever happened, or you can refuse and watch me put a bullet in her head right now. Either way, I win. Either I get new body tonight, or I get rid of the only two people who know the truth about Project Lazarus. Victor pulled a pistol from his jacket, the metal gleaming under the garage lights, and pressed it against the back of Lena's skull while she sobbed into the concrete. Noah's voice crackled through the speakers again, but this time it sounded different, stronger somehow, like he'd found some hidden reserve of willpower inside that digital prison. Eli, listen to me carefully because I don't have much time before the system shuts me down again. There's a failsafe built into the car that even Victor doesn't know about. The engineers who designed Project Lazarus didn't trust him, so they programmed a kill switch into the transfer process. If you can overload the neural sensors before the upload completes, the entire system will crash, and everyone trapped inside will be freed. Eli's mind raced through the technical implications of what Noah just said, his years of working on engines and electrical systems suddenly becoming the only advantage he had in this impossible situation. Overloading sensors meant creating a feedback loop, forcing the machine to process more data than it could handle until the circuits fried themselves. But that would require turning the key, starting the transfer, and gambling that he could destroy the system before it destroyed him. One mistake, 1 second too slow, and he'd end up exactly like Noah, conscious but powerless, screaming silently while Victor stole his entire existence. Victor cocked the pistol, the clicking sound echoing through the garage like a death sentence countdown, and his finger tightened on the trigger while Lena closed her eyes and whispered prayers that nobody could hear. 5 seconds, Eli. 5 seconds to decide if you're brave enough to save her or selfish enough to save yourself. 5, 4, 3. Each number fell like a hammer, crushing the air out of the room, making time itself feel like it was collapsing into this single horrible moment. Eli took a deep breath. He turned the key. The Lamborghini roared to life, and electricity exploded through his entire body like he'd grabbed a live wire with both hands. Every nerve ending screaming in agony, as the car's sensors dug into his brain and started copying everything that made him human. Did he just make the biggest mistake of his life? Only subscribers will find out what happens in the next 60 seconds. The pain was unlike anything Eli had ever experienced, like his skull was being torn open from the inside while thousands of needles injected fire directly into his brain. The dashboard screens exploded with data, displaying his memories in rapid succession. His childhood, his father teaching him how to fix engines, the day Noah disappeared, every moment of his life being downloaded and analyzed by the machine. He could feel Victor's consciousness pushing into his mind like an invasive parasite, trying to take control, trying to erase him completely and wear his body like a suit. But Eli wasn't trying to survive the transfer. He was trying to break it. His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, forcing more contact with the sensors, deliberately flooding the system with as much neural data as possible to create the overload Noah had described. The car's engine screamed louder, the hum becoming a high-pitched shriek that shattered every window in the garage, sending glass raining down like deadly snow. Sparks shot from the dashboard, smoke poured from the vents, and the entire vehicle shook violently like it was tearing itself apart from the inside out. Victor's calm expression finally cracked, his eyes widening in genuine shock as he realized what Eli was doing, and he dropped the pistol to rush toward the car door. "Stop! You'll destroy everything I've built. Decades of research, centuries of preserved consciousness. You can't comprehend what you're throwing away." He yanked on the door handle, but the locks had engaged automatically, trapping Eli inside while the transfer process spiraled out of control. Victor pounded on the window with his fists, his composed mask completely shattered, revealing the desperate, terrified man underneath who couldn't accept that his immortality machine was finally dying. Lena scrambled to her feet and grabbed the pistol Victor had dropped, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it steady, but she pointed it at him anyway. "Get away from the car. Let him finish this." Her voice cracked with emotion, but her fingers stayed on the trigger, ready to shoot if Victor tried anything. She'd spent years living with this monster, believing his lies about accidents and disappearances, watching him manipulate everyone around him while hiding the truth about Project Lazarus. Now, she finally had the chance to end it. Inside the car, Eli could hear multiple voices screaming through the speakers now. Not just Noah, but dozens of others, maybe hundreds. All the people Victor had trapped over the decades, their consciousness fragments fighting to break free as the system collapsed around them. Noah's voice cut through the chaos, clearer than before, almost solid somehow. "It's working, Eli. The failsafe is activating. Just hold on a little longer, and everyone gets out." The screens flickered between faces, each one a victim of Victor's obsession with cheating death, each one deserving freedom from this digital hell. The electricity surging through Eli's body suddenly reversed direction, and instead of feeling like he was being erased, he felt lighter, like something heavy was being lifted off his soul. The transfer wasn't completing, it was unwinding. Victor's consciousness, the piece that had been trying to invade Eli's mind, was being ripped back out and scattered into nothing. The car's systems were cannibalizing themselves, deleting everything stored inside to prevent the catastrophic overload from spreading further, and that meant every trapped consciousness was being released. One final surge of power shot through the Lamborghini, every light in the garage exploding simultaneously, plunging everything into complete darkness except for the blue electric glow surrounding the car itself. Then silence. The engine died. The screens went black. Eli collapsed forward against the steering wheel, barely conscious but still breathing. Still himself. The machine is dead, but is Victor? Comment what you think happens next, because the final twist will leave you speechless. The garage stayed dark for what felt like hours, though only seconds had passed, and the only sound was Eli's ragged breathing echoing against concrete walls that still smelled like burned circuits and shattered glass. Lena stumbled through the darkness toward the Lamborghini, using the faint moonlight bleeding through the broken windows to guide her path, and when she finally reached the driver's side door, she yanked it open with trembling hands. Eli tumbled out onto the cold floor, his body limp and unresponsive, his eyes staring blankly at the ceiling like someone who'd seen the other side of death and barely made it back. Victor stood frozen near the workbench, his face drained of all color, looking older somehow than he had just minutes ago, like the machine's destruction had taken something vital from him. He stared at the dead Lamborghini with an expression that mixed grief and rage and disbelief, his hands shaking as he realized that decades of work had just been erased in a single catastrophic moment. "You destroyed them all," he whispered, his voice barely audible, stripped of that confident authority he'd carried like armor. "Every consciousness I preserved, every mind I saved from oblivion, gone. You murdered hundreds of people, Eli." Lena pointed the pistol at Victor's chest, her finger tight on the trigger, her voice cutting through his self-pitying speech like a blade through silk. "They weren't saved, they were prisoners. You trapped them inside a machine and called it immortality while you stole bodies and ruined lives. My parents, Noah, all those people, they're finally free because of what Eli just did. You're the murderer here, not him." Her words hung in the air like a verdict, final and absolute, and for the first time in probably 50 years, Victor had no response, no clever manipulation, no way to twist the truth into something that served him. Eli slowly pushed himself up onto his knees, every muscle in his body screaming in protest, but he forced himself to stand because he needed to see this through to the end. He looked at Victor and saw something he hadn't expected. The man was aging right before his eyes, wrinkles spreading across his face like cracks in old porcelain, his hair turning gray and then white within seconds. Without the machine constantly refreshing his stolen youth, Victor's real age was finally catching up to him, decades of borrowed time collapsing all at once. He dropped to his knees, gasping for air, clutching his chest like his heart was giving out. "The car," Victor wheezed, reaching one trembling hand toward the Lamborghini like it could still save him somehow. "I just needed more time. I was so close to perfecting the transfer, to making it painless, to giving humanity the gift of eternal life. You don't understand what you've destroyed." His body convulsed once, twice, and then he collapsed forward onto the concrete, his breathing shallow and irregular. Lena lowered the gun, realizing she wouldn't need it after all. The machine had been the only thing keeping Victor alive, and without it, nature was finally claiming what it was owed. Eli walked over to where Victor lay dying and knelt down beside him, his voice quiet but firm, carrying no anger or satisfaction, just exhausted truth. "You didn't want to save humanity, Victor. You just wanted to save yourself. And you destroyed everyone who got in your way." Victor's eyes found Eli's face one last time, perhaps looking for forgiveness or understanding, but finding neither. His breathing stopped. His eyes went empty. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, probably neighbors calling police after hearing the explosion of shattering glass and screaming engines. Lena helped Eli walk toward the garage door, both of them limping and exhausted but finally free. They stepped out into the rain, letting it wash away the smoke and blood and electric burn marks that covered their skin. Behind them, the Lamborghini sat silent and dead, just another broken car in a garage full of Victor's twisted collections. 3 days later, police found something strange when they dismantled the Lamborghini's computer systems to use as evidence in the investigation. Deep in the backup drives, buried under layers of corrupted data, they discovered hundreds of video files, last messages from everyone Victor had trapped over the years, people saying goodbye to families they'd never see again. And at the very end of the last file, they found Noah, smiling despite everything, recording one final message. "If you're watching this, it means someone finally stopped him. Thank you. Tell Eli I'm proud of him. Tell him I'm sorry I didn't listen when he warned me Victor was dangerous. And tell him the Lamborghini was never meant to run. It was meant to stop." The screen went black. Subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Seriously, because the truth is always darker than you think. And if you're still not subscribing, drop a comment and tell me why.